welcome to Run 8. But today, I'm doing a little follow-up on that video that I posted last week, where I talked about linear gameplay versus dynamic gameplay in train simulators. And this video is going to be about, if you haven't read the title, form versus function in a train simulator. Now, I'm going to come around and say I am actually quite under the weather today. Been so the past couple days, so if I sound off, you understand why. Also, when you hear me go, and I'm in Run 8 for a couple different reasons, because Run 8 is one of the ones that kind of hits in that form versus function topic quite often in various different communities, and I want to use Run 8 kind of as an example. I'm gonna make sure I turn down some of my Discord volumes, because I'm currently also monitoring what's going on there. Anyways, but before I go and talk about form versus function and how it can affect train simulators, I want to touch up on something that I forgot to say last week. It was literally I finished that video, hit upload, and went, I have one more thing I have to say. And that is on the topic of replayability. So in a lot of different train sims, you know, you're doing a scripted scenario, and when you're in a scripted scenario, what I mean by that is you're given a train and you're going from point A to point B, and you're doing what, you know, you're doing what the writer of that scenario wanted you to do. So every single time you're going to be going and stopping at the same signals. You're going to see the same AI trains. You're going to see the same setouts and pickups. You're going to drop off the same cars and pick up the same cars. And this was a problem I had in one of the scenarios I ran in Railworks and Train Sim, is that I was going to make a set out, and I had my idea of how I should do it, but I couldn't do it my way. I had to specifically do it the way that the scenario wanted. And I went through and was like, okay, well, I guess I have to do it this way, which was a way that really wasn't comfortable for me. It was still the right way to do it, but it just wasn't the way that I personally would have done it. And I noticed in several different scenarios that I played in Railworks, and I've played a lot of scenarios, and I haven't played a lot of scenarios in Railworks. I played a lot of scenarios in trains, and that was one of the things that just bugged me. But with a dynamic gameplay, like what you get with Run 8, or even a little bit with trains, every time you run that local, it's going to be different. So you run a local, and you set out 20 cars, and you pick up 20 cars today. Tomorrow you run that local, you might be setting out 15 cars, and picking up the 20 you dropped off yesterday, but you might have to wait, you know, an extra 2 hours because you've got a lot of other traffic around you. Oh, hey, look, train. So that's it. Just a dynamic scenario leads to more dynamic, open, diverse replayability. You can run that same local 20 times and have a different experience every single time with a dynamic scenarios. But linear gameplay, like you get out of other games, it's going to be the same thing every single time, which gets boring after a while. But it comes down to personal taste. Moving on. Today's topic is going to be about blowing my nose. Hold on half a second. Ah, there we go. Got that big chunk of snot out of there. Yay for having a cold or flu. So, Run 8, over the years, has improved its look and quality. This is Run 8 version 2, of course. I have no idea what those two trains are doing. That one right there is being driven by an AI, I think. And that one right there is being driven by a player. We're in West Colton, UP's West Colton yard on the Cajon subdivision. And I got a couple people working West Colton right now. They're just sorting some stuff out. But I specifically want to be right here because I want to take a look at these two locomotives. I'm going to be using them as an example later on in this conversation. But one of the things that people always used to say about Run 8, and they still kind of do, is, oh, it looks terrible. It looks so bad. Look how good this other train simulator looks. Look at this. Look at it. Yeah, Run 8 just looks like MSTS. Okay. I hear you. You're wrong. But you're not. But you are. Here's how you're not wrong. The developers of Run 8 Studios, or developers at Run 8 Studios, guys who actually make all this stuff, they did a lot of content in the past for MSTS. They built tons of stuff. In fact, I believe, and I could be wrong, that they were in works with when Microsoft Train Simulator version 2 was in development. The devs from Run 8 at the time were a completely different company, or they were on a different company, they were under a different name, were developing content for Microsoft Train Simulator version 2. And then they kind of started doing some stuff with Railworks, but they really weren't happy with it. With Railworks and the fact that MSTS kind of got shut down. But they But no, the developers, they weren't happy with Run 8 and all that other, or not Run 8, they weren't happy with Train Sim, with Railworks and stuff. So they said, you know what? Hell with it. We'll make our own. And they did. They're one of the few people who have gone to a forum and typed in very all cap, click, angry letters, nah, this sucks, we'll make our own. And actually done it. They went out and did it. Now, they aren't high-end video game developers. These aren't people who work for, like, Bungie or E3. These are just, like, guys who have regular 9-to-5 jobs just doing this in their spare time. And they had experience with MSTS, so that's where they started. They started with Microsoft XNA, which is an okay program for developing in. It basically was Microsoft's attempt at getting more people to make video games and making video game development easier and more accessible. And I'm just going to mute Discord. And so to make that more accessible to everybody else, Microsoft made XNA. And so the Run 8 developers went with that. And that's when we get the good old ES44. The ES44 AC, more specifically, because I know someone's going to call me out on that. So this is the first locomotive that was put into Run 8, as far as I'm aware. And it was what we had when Run 8 first got released. We had a little bit of stuff, and we had a lot of, we didn't have lighting or shadows or all that stuff. Can I disable? There. This is kind of what Run 8 used to look like. It's a lot of the lighting is better now, but there, shadows back on because I like them. They kill my FPS when I'm recording, but I don't care. But we had this, and I want you to take a look. This is an original locomotive. This is what came with Run 8 when it first was released. Let's look at the SD70 Ace, right? Look, it looks so much better. Like, the thing I noticed most was I was doing some switching, and look at this truck. Look at that truck. That from a distance, that looks good, but when we're standing right here, that looks like crud. But look at this truck. Even up close, that looks good. I mean, look at the level of detail and all that stuff. And and you could even see it like in some of the paint and some of the other things. But Run 8 does look good. It has been improved and it's getting better. But wait a minute. What does all this have to do with form versus function? Well, let's rewind a little bit. And while we rewind, let's go somewhere not as graphically intense as that spot because it's bugging me. Oh, look, there's a freight train. Where's this train going? That train? Oh, that's it's a train for Trona? Well, apparently it's a train for Trona. And I'm gonna be mad at somebody here. That guy is run. That's not an AI. That's a player, and he's driving that train way too damn fast. Like way too fast to Tehachapi Loop. He's just. Anyways, we'll just sit here at the hump and watch this guy speed through here while I explain. So, computers can only do so much so fast. You can see this by trying to load up 20 different programs. Your computer's going to bog down. When developers are developing a train simulator, they have to ask themselves, do we want something that looks really pretty, or do we want something that works really good? And you have to understand, when I say that computers can only do so much so fast, they can only either make things look really pretty or make things function really well. Train Sim World and Train Sim look really, really good. The computer spends a lot of time making it look good. But the physics, they can't really do physics much because both of those are very computer-intensive systems to have in place. And if you have your, really high, the perfect train simulator would be, realistic physics and ultra high definition, textures and models and just, make it so that way I can't tell I'm not looking at the real thing. You can do that. You're not going to do that on any computer that you currently own. I mean, any computer on the market right now will not be able to run that train simulator. Oh, look, he slowed his train down. But if you had, to balance that, imagine like two scales. Developers look at it and go, well, we can make a really pretty looking train simulator, but we're going to have to sacrifice and not have as realistic physics because that's going to impede overall system performance. If we have really good physics and really good graphics, that's going to bog down the users' computers, and the users are either going to have to invest a ton of money and have really high-end computers to run our sim, or no one's going to be able to play it at a reasonable level. And the guy's speeding up again. He's going way too fast. Whatever. Anyways, so developers kind of have to balance that out, and that's you see a lot of that in railworks and in trains where they go, we want to be able to do all these really cool things, so we're going to sacrifice having physics and having this or having that in the game so that way we can reach our end goal. Those are developers choosing form, the look of their game, over functionality. And basically they're getting rid of the high-quality physics in favor of, or super realistic physics in favor of high-quality graphics. Run 8 went the opposite direction of that. They went, we want really high-end physics. We don't care so much about graphics. So you got, when Run 8 first came out, a train simulator that functioned really, really, really well, but didn't look too good. I mean, they model aerodynamic characteristics of the train. If you built two trains of the same weight, stacked trains of the same weight, they would be different lengths, of course, but same weight, and one was loaded and one was empty. Why do I say they'd be different weights? Well, or different lengths. The empty one to weigh as much as the loaded one would be longer because you'd have to have more cars. Run 8 models the aerodynamic resistance of those shipping containers on there. It also models the rolling resistance of all those different wheels. So those two trains, even though they weigh the same amount of weight, are going to have slightly different performance. And it would really be negated almost because the rolling resistance of the one train would be equal to the wind resistance of the other. But it is there. A really, really cool example of things that they model, and I'm gonna teleport somewhere where I know I'm not going to screw anybody up by doing this. A really cool example of that is if we do this. I need a freight car. And let's just grab... We want something that we're going to be able to see. So, center beam. So we got the center beam, right? I just dropped it in here right now. It's empty. Look at the suspension. I'm going to click this car. And I'm going to hit... Watch the suspension right here. Watch it as I hit full load. It compresses. Remember, now, empty, full, empty, full. Like, I'm just going to delete the car because I don't want to keep it. Like, that's them accurately modeling, like, the weight of the car. And that will drastically affect... Oh, wow, he just ran a red signal. That will drastically affect how your train performs. If you were to run a 2,000-foot empty coal train up the side of Tehachapi, up through right here, and then you were to run a loaded coal train the same length up that same track, it would handle differently because they went through the physics of handling that. And it's even going to handle differently as it zigzags through the curves. Now, other train simulators will be like, oh, yeah, we model the weight. And they do. But they don't necessarily model the rolling resistance of going through a corner. They don't model slack action and those kinds of things. And I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying they prioritize the quality of experience. And I'm not just saying Train Simulator, Train Sim World Railworks, Train Simulator, Trains, any other, those are the only two I can think of off the top of my head. Train Sim World, Railworks, Trains, any version of Trains, they focus on making the sim look good versus the physics are kind of a back-end thing that, okay, well, all right, we'll do some physics. Run 8, 100% goes, how much does this car weigh, how much wheels does this car have, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Another thing that Run 8 does really, really well, when I say, functionality, I hate that spot right there, is the multiplayer aspect. Now, transport to such a train. That train, those 3 locomotives right there, are being driven by a player. I'm not driving them. That's a player. If I go avatar tags on, will I see him? Yep. There's Darren. He's driving that Rio Grande tunnel motor right there. Actually, I think that's his lead unit. Yeah, that's his lead unit. But he's driving those 3. Not an AI, not a scripted computer driving it. A player. I mean, you can see his player name right there. And if I go... No, he's not driving it anymore. But if I go to Darth Yoda... No, he's not driving it either. He just parked those locomotives. He's parking those locomotives right there, getting them serviced, ready to go. In fact, he's probably switching them out because he's going to be working Barstow. Or not Barstow, Bakersfield, UP Bakersfield. That's a player. I'm interacting with other people, and it works. It's a system that works really, really... Did he just... Wow, he just backed his whole train all the way up. It's a system that works really, really well. I mean, we have... And you see me press F3 and bring up this really cool dispatching board, and I'm doing all this stuff up here. Like, there are systems in place in Run 8 that work fantastic, and that is function over form. Does it look pretty? I mean, yeah, Run 8 now looks really good. Train Sim World looks even better. Does it play well? Oh, I've spent more time in Run 8 in a single day than I've spent the entire time I have owned Train Sim World. I typically play TSW when I play it for maybe 45 minutes at a time. When I play Run 8, I'm in it for 6-7 hours at a time. And it's just because things in it work so well. Am I saying Run 8 is the best train simulator ever? No, that still probably goes to Trains 12. But when it comes to looks versus physics and what was actually going on behind the scenes, Run 8 easily wins that argument. It works better than any other train simulator out there. And it looks pretty good. And you know what? I haven't seen anything from V3, but I've been told, like I've seen some of the, I haven't seen like screenshots of what V3 is going to have, but I've heard rumors of what it's going to have, and I've heard it's going to be looking really, really good. Now, when I say earlier I'm playing with other players, unmute that. I'm in Discord right now talking to people. Like, there are people doing switching and working together cooperatively to make trains move on this server, on this massive railroad. There is no route in Railworks, in any version of Railworks, that is equal to the size of the area that we have in Run 8 here. And there's only one route that I can think of in trains that is even close to this size, and that's UMR, which is actually probably bigger than the square mileage that we have here. But this is Bakersfield, California, and I can go all the way to LA, Los Angeles, California. And it's not scaled down. It's not compressed or any way. It is 1-to-1 scale. So that's me just saying, when train simulators function better than they look, they're going to do well. You can't necessarily judge them based by how they look. I've had people, Big Red, he's one of the guys, who used to go, oh, Run 8 doesn't look that good. And I literally said, yeah, but it has multiplayer. You could play with me. And he goes, oh. And he bought it. He's like, holy crap. And now he owns almost all of the DLC. Actually, I think he owns all of it. He plays constantly. And I think he's even said he plays Run 8 more than he plays Train Sim World or Railworks or anything like that. So that's once again, that's function over form makes a better experience. And of course, I'm going to say this now. This is my personal preference, personal opinion.
Well,
form makes or function makes better experience. It's tying into the dynamic scenarios and the freedom that we as players in Run 8 have to drive our trains however we want.
So yeah, Kozak might be the oldest out of all of us on right now. Well, other than you, Kozak might be the second oldest.
I identify as a 12-year-old potato.
I see.
Hence, potato head.
And I'm sorry if I'm not responding, guys. I'm recording a video right now, and you guys are in it.
Yay.
Big Red.
Good.
Yay.
Goo.
So yeah, like I said, this just I apologize if I'm kind of all over the place. Like I said, I'm fairly ill. Like, I've been drinking nothing but orange juice, and actually that's a lie. I've been drinking nothing but Coke, water, and Dayquil the past 3 days. So, and there are a lot of Run 8 does have a lot of shortcomings, like this road that just randomly ends. They, like I said, they focus on railroad operations and railroad physics and realistically modeling the railroad. The scenery around, you get buildings like this, If you're right here at about this height in the cab of a locomotive, that's fine. I mean, it looks like crap. It would be nice to see more buildings, but that's fine, Things like these trees, they're not super high detailed speed trees, and they don't change with the weather, and they don't blow in the wind like other games do, but that's graphically intense, computer code that would have to be put into the game. Instead, they said, well, we could have trees blow in the wind, or we could have the cars rock and sway as they go down the tracks and have realistic physics. And they went with realistic physics. Oh, but trees blowing in the wind would be realistic physics. That's realistic eye candy. Does that tree, if this tree right here was blowing and swaying in the wind, is that going to affect how my train operates? No, it is not. It's going to affect how the simulation looks, but I don't care. That's not going to stop my train. That's not going to make my train go up the hill any faster or slower. Now, modeling if I have one traction motor shut off on one of my locomotives, and how that affects how much pulling power my train has, having that be calculated and figured out by the computer or by the program, that's going to affect how I experience driving the train. That is form over function. And that's my opinion is that if you're going to build a train simulator, function over form. That's it. That's it. This is a 25-minute long video. There, 25 minutes. That's me ranting. Later.